Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex. If you think today's tip or guest interview can help someone you know, please share this with them. And if you enjoy listening to our show, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button on the episodes. Finally, aside from our podcast, our day job here at Riderflex is to provide recruiting, staffing, and consulting services. You can visit riderflex.com to learn more about us and get the information on the services we provide. And now, a quick word from our sponsor and friends at Marketing 360.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Just thanks again. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh yeah, man. I like the story. Let's talk about it. So Brie Doyle on the Riderflex podcast. Brie, thank you so much for being on today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So interesting background, right? I looked you up. I'm like, okay, school teacher, writer. Then like, I think I want to be an entrepreneur. I think I want to help people with retreats. I don't want to be a teacher anymore. I'm trying to figure it out, right? I'm looking at your background. I'm like, okay, let me see what's going on here.
Right.
So I'm anxious to get into it, but tell the listeners a little bit about, your personal life early on first, like where you grew up, parents, siblings. Let's talk about some of that first. Go for it.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Boulder, Colorado. I actually live here now, but I'm from here. I'm one of the rare people that's actually
Oh,
from here and
wow.
live here now. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Do you have
I,
one of those you got one of those native stickers on the back of your car?
I should. I don't. I was born in Texas and my parents moved out here when I was 2 weeks old. So my younger
Okay.
brothers always tell everybody that I'm actually a Texan, but I still so yeah, so I have two younger brothers. I grew up in South Boulder, and spent all of my life here really, and then went away to college and then came back after living in New York City for a while. Yeah, it's just such a great way to grow up, a great place to have such nice outdoor values, and I wanted to get back here. So yeah, I love it in Boulder.
Did you go to New York professionally after you graduated from CU? Is that what you did?
Yeah, so I moved out to New York City well, I was a teacher and I was teaching there. My, at the time, boyfriend, my now husband, he moved out there for a career as well. So we were kind of picking, where in the East Coast we wanted to try. And it was between Boston and New York City. And we both were like, okay, let's try New York City. So moved out there, and that's where I started my teaching career, which is,
Wow.
yeah, it was
Wow.
wild. It
You
was
grew up did you meet your husband when you were going to college at CU?
So we met. My very best friend from elementary school actually went to college with him. So we all got together one summer, and that's how I met him. And then we just stayed in touch. We actually did distance. I went to Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and then also CU. And he and I dated while he was in college back east, and then and then moved together out to New York City. That was like the first time we were together out there.
So he grew up in Colorado, but he went to college in the East Coast, and that's where the whole East Coast connection came in.
Right, exactly.
And
We'd wanted
he
to live somewhere different, try it
oh,
out
you
there.
did. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I was trying to figure out how that conversation was. He like, hey, listen, come out to the East. I mean, teaching in New York City after growing up in Boulder, like, wow, that's
Yeah, it was very eye-opening. My very first day of school, and I don't know what level of appropriateness we're okay with here, but I'll just go with the story because it's a crazy story. It was my very first day ever of teaching, and all the kids, I had all my students sitting down. I was teaching 7th grade language arts, and I hear this bang next door, and I poke my head out, and there was a veteran teacher, and all the kids had locked the teacher out of the room, and kids were having interesting sexual positions in the locker room next door. Like 8th grade kids, I was like, oh my God, so it's a little different from growing up in Boulder for sure.
Were you like living in one of those 800 square foot apartments in New York too? Like you and your husband, or was it, you
Yeah.
live in a tiny place? Okay.
Totally, totally. Yeah, it was a great experience though, you know. I mean, I feel like after teaching in New York City, I came to Boulder and I was like, give me any kid, I can handle anything. So it was a good experience for me as a teacher, and it was great to live, you know, somewhere else. And New York City is an amazing, vibrant city. So it was really fun. So
My wife's from a small town in Texas, and I grew up in Oklahoma.
oh,
And we were living in Connecticut for a job for a while, and a company tried to recruit me that was going to require us to move to Brooklyn. And
okay.
we drove down into New York and went over to Brooklyn, and we were driving in the car, and my wife's looking at me. She's like, I don't think so. We're not doing this. Yeah, she's like, nah, I don't think so. So, anyway,
Yes,
um,
living there for sure. We were like ready to, you know, I missed the trees and the mountains, and
yeah.
you know, people would be like, just go to Central Park. And I was like, that's not right.
Let me go. I want to go back just for a minute. What did your folks do? What did your parents do?
Yeah. So my dad was in the oil business actually,
Okay.
industry for over 40 years. And then my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So she stayed home with us. I have
Okay.
two younger brothers. So yeah, so
Are your folks still alive today? They're still good to go?
they are, both my parents are alive. I've been in Colorado, which is great.
Does your dad still live in Boulder?
No, they in Superior actually. He lives in Superior. So
Okay.
close by them.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, can you be in the oil business and live in Boulder? No,
I
I'm
know.
just joking.
Kicked him out.
I'm just-
But Superior. Yeah. He's retired. He's retired now a long time, but yeah, for a while that was the deal.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking around with all my Boulder friends. I'm just messing
Right.
around. I know.
Right.
Uh, okay. All right. So, but you wanted to be a teacher, right? Or early on, that was your goal. Like, I want to be a teacher.
Yeah, I mean, I always loved kids, and I worked with kids my whole life, and so I knew I wanted to be a teacher. But you know, writing was something I've always loved as well. So it's kind of both facets for me, and I could teach
Okay.
writing, and for me it was like I could have a teaching credential and I could get a job anywhere. So that was really important to me, get out of school and be
Mm.
totally independent. So so I found teaching jobs really quite easily actually, and I loved
Okay.
it. The first 10 years of my career, I was a teacher, and it was some of the best training. And even today, I mean, some of the most important training that I have for sure.
And then, so you're married, you were teaching for 10 years, you had kids, you had, I don't know, did you have all three kids during that 10 years while you were in teaching?
No, we had, let's see, we had our first kiddo, and then I left teaching at that point because my husband's
Okay.
career was really kind of picking up and he was traveling quite a lot. So we decided, you know, I would stay home with the kids and write. That was my opportunity to start writing. So
I see. I
yeah,
see. Okay. All right. So let me take a pause there. So are you still living in New York City after you had your first child?
we moved back right when we started having kids. We moved back to Boulder. Yeah.
And his job took him from the East Coast back to Boulder?
You know what? We just cut bait and we were like, we can't live here anymore. We don't have any leads, but we're going to figure it out in Boulder. So
Wow. Oh, so both of you guys quit hold on. Both of you guys quit your jobs on the East Coast, and you had one kid, you moved back to Boulder, and you're like, okay, I don't know what we're gonna do, but we'll figure it out.
right. Right. Yeah. It was actually before we had kids, but we knew we didn't want to stay in New York City. We had job offers in San Francisco, but we really wanted to be in Boulder. So we just said, you know, screw it. We're going to leave and we're going to
Mhm.
figure it out. We're going to make it work in Boulder. So we came here with no leads and figured it out.
Oh, wow. What did you call, like, mom and daddy? Be like, hey, can we stay with you for a few weeks until we find jobs?
Right. No, actually, we went to travel. We went to New Zealand. We were traveling through New Zealand and we were applying for jobs from being abroad. And both of us, we came back from New Zealand because we had interviews.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it
Oh,
worked.
I bet that was, well, so that was before kids. So you went to New Zealand on this trip. You weren't working, but you probably had some money saved up, whatever. You go to New Zealand for this backpacking trip, or we'll go, well, that's pretty cool.
It was great. I mean, it's one of those risks that you can take, you know, like when you're in your young 20s or whatever, and you're like, oh, it
Right?
doesn't matter. We don't have any kids. So we just kind of left everything. We packed up my parents' garage with my stuff, our stuff, and then we just left.
What?
It worked out
Well,
really well.
was there a moment where you were like on a beach down in New Zealand, like at a little tiki hut bar, and you were like, "Hey, let's figure out like how to live here and like open up a little." Did you have some of those conversations?
Oh yeah. That's part of why I do what I do now. Because I'm like, well,
I'm thinking it is. right? That probably planted the seed right there, the New Zealand thing. Okay, that's a good segue. Okay, so all right, so you're in New Zealand, you do the hippie trail. No, I'm just joking around. I don't know what the uh so you come back to Boulder and he gets a job and you get a job too, or did you just start writing and you stayed at home then?
No, so I got a job after New Zealand. I was a teacher here for 9 years actually, and
Okay.
yeah, and then he was working with a company that called Eco Products and grew
Okay.
that company, and so yeah, so
Okay.
it was that, and then after that I had my first kiddo, and then at that point that's when I decided to stay home and pursue writing.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
then, the thought to go back to teaching was always kind of there, but we kept having kids, so it didn't make as much sense.
All right.
Yeah.
So you're doing some writing, you're raising kids. All right. Now talk to me about, yeah, so let's get it. How did you go from writing and being a stay-at-home mom and taking care of the family, and then you're like, I want to do retreats. So how did this happen? Walk me through the transition.
Yeah. So it was actually, I was, after I had my third kiddo, I was struggling. I just felt like, man, I was so tired all the time. I was so depleted, and I just felt like I was in a pretty low spot. And at that point, I decided to go on a retreat because when I was younger, I had done a lot of traveling, obviously. And I studied abroad in Nepal, actually, when I was in college. And that was like a
Oh,
really formative experience in my life. And
okay.
um, that from there I met a Buddhist meditation teacher and started going on regular retreats, and this was kind of something I did all before I had kids. And then after I had my third kid, I just had, years had gone by
I
since
see.
taking a retreat, and I was like, I need to do something because I'm in a funk. And it was for the first time in my life I felt like I was looking for a label for what was wrong with me. Like, is this depression? Am I anxious?
Mm,
Like, is it
mm,
gluten? Like, what's, I felt just
mm.
sad. So I took this retreat after I had my third kiddo, and he was like 15 months old or something. It was really hard to leave, but and I realized that nothing was wrong with me, just that I, needed more space for myself. I had just been hemorrhaging all my energy onto everyone else but myself.
Mm,
And so I came back from that and I was like, I know I'm not the only one who feels like this and is struggling from feeling depleted and exhausted and wiped out. So it was from there that I started my retreat business. And I actually didn't even intend to start a business. I just decided, hey, I'm going to host a retreat. And so
mm,
for a couple of years, I just did one retreat in this great place that I found. But now it's kind of scaled and grown. And now I'm doing multiple retreats, at least one a month, and private retreats and all different kinds of retreats for people, because I think we all need space, and our world, our society just doesn't encourage those kind of breaks. And
mm.
sometimes we're so used to being plugged in and dialed in that when we take those breaks, we almost don't know what to do with ourselves. um,
Right. Right.
right. So and with my background as a teacher, like building curriculum is really my wheelhouse. And I'm a voracious reader because I'm a writer as well. So I build, I research a ton, and then I build curriculum that's really designed specifically for different outcomes and desires for folks to come and just like relax into, and I kind of take the reins from there.
So I want to ask a question. All right. So let me get this straight. You had your three kids, you're staying at home, you're feeling depressed. I don't know if depressed is the right word, but you're feeling anxious and you like, I need to find something. You go to your husband and you're like, hey, I'm gonna like go away on a retreat by myself for what was it, 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 weeks? What was that?
At that point, it was a week. Yeah, it was a
A
week
week.
for that.
A week.
Mhm.
I'm gonna leave for a week. By the way, I know you have a full-time job, but you got three kids. We got three kids and a 15-month-old. But I'm gonna take off and go to like a different country. So I'll see you.
Right, exactly.
I'm trying to figure out how my wife would react to that. I'm be like, by the way, I'm gonna go to like Cancun for a week. I'll see you.
Right. Totally.
I'm
Totally.
thinking my wife wouldn't like that. Yeah, your husband, he's a good guy.
He's a good guy. I'm a lucky woman, that's for sure. He's
Uh,
yeah, and he's also very used to me. I mean, I think that's how we actually came up with a pact when I first got pregnant, because I wasn't always sure that I wanted to have kids. I
okay.
loved children, but I wasn't sure that I wanted my own kids. And so I was really fearful that I would lose all my autonomy and freedom.
Mm.
So we made a pact that like each of us would go on a retreat, once a year,
Oh,
once
I
we had
see.
kids. even when they
I
were
see.
small.
I see.
And I had kind of fallen out of that practice by my third kiddo because I'd been just swimming in kids. And but he, he was really great about it. And that's kind of one of the pacts that we have with each other is like, I get to go and you get to go. And it's important for both of us and important for our family. It's always hard. I hear this a lot from people, like they're nervous to ask their partner, but it's almost one of these things that's like, once you have this ethos in your relationship, then it becomes this beautiful thing where you both
Mhm.
can evolve in your own ways,
I'm having this visual of him like and I mean, this is the visual I have. Like he's in the car. You guys are in the car on the way to the airport, and he like pulls you up at the airport at the drop off, and the 15-month-old is crying, and the other two kids are, fighting in the back seat, and it's loud, and you're kind of getting ready to get out of the car, and he's looking at you. He's like, "You're coming back, aren't you?"
Totally. Right. Totally. Yeah.
uh, okay, so when you first do this, but when you first do your first retreat, you're not thinking you're not thinking I'm gonna start a business and I'm gonna start a brand. That wasn't really even part of it.
No, not at all. No,
Interesting.
I was, again, like I identify more as a creative type. I mean, I'm a
Okay.
writer, I'm a dancer, that's kind of more my wheelhouse. So my husband's
Okay.
very business minded and turns out I am
Okay.
too, but that was not something I was like tapping at that point because I was so depleted. I just needed to like rebuild my own reserves really. And
Okay.
it's like once you
Okay.
do those kinds of things, as we've talked about briefly before, it's like then you have all these creative ideas because I finally
Mm,
felt full again, and so
mm.
from there I was like, okay, this could really become something. So
Because you're thinking, I know other people need this. Like I want to help other people find what I have found to make me happier. And so your first goal is just like, I'm just gonna help people. I'm gonna do some of these retreats. Okay. And then your husband's looking at you like, hey, can we make money on this? Let's turn this into a business.
right, right,
He's
yeah,
like, yeah, this is cool, but let's make money on it too.
right.
Uh,
My
okay.
first retreat, I broke even, and I was so excited about it.
Okay.
Now I'm,
All right.
savvier now, but in the beginning, I was just like, I just want to, cover expenses and, but now I know better. I've learned so much in the year, and I'm learning so quickly. Having your own deal, it's like you learn very quickly what works and what doesn't, and so I've learned a lot in a short period of time, and I'm grateful for that for sure.
Mm. If you can help people do something that is a passion for you personally and make a little bit of money, like that's the holy grail, right? Because you're doing all three.
Totally, yeah, totally. It's a dream. It's a dream.
Okay, so let's do this as it stands today. And I know that, when you okay, so at first it was She Glows Retreats, right? And I
Mhm.
think you're rebranding and just to Brie Doyle, but
Yep.
give us the BrieDoyle.com. Give us the overview as it stands today, the 3-minute elevator pitch. Go for it.
Yeah. So my specialty is mental and emotional wellness. So I create experiences for people to drop into to really be proactive about their mental and emotional health.
Okay.
My belief is that we're obsessed with health. And, we spend $30 billion a year out of pocket expenses on health, on
Mm.
healthcare. The interesting thing about that is what we associate with health is like broccoli and skinny jeans and veiny biceps and all of these things, physical health, which is so
Physical.
important. Right. But to me, it's that mental emotional piece that's really missing. And so that's what my whole brand is about mental and emotional wellness. And so I offer, I do one-on-ones, I do retreats. My book really dials this down as well. I have lots of different avenues to kind of support people with mental and emotional wellness is really my intention, and make it a proactive thing so that it's not, all we hear about mental and emotional health are the horrifying statistics, like 1 in 4 adults in the US has a diagnosable mental illness or
Is that right? That's the stat? Oh my God. Okay. I didn't know it was that high.
I know. And I was looking through my book this morning, but 10.3 million adults have suicidal thoughts, so this
Wow.
is all we hear about mental health is like the horrifying statistics. Nobody teaches us how to deal with like our constantly ruminating mind, or how to deal with loneliness, or what to do when you have a really painful breakup, or nobody teaches us how to deal with these not so tangible things that happen to all of us. So
Mm-hmm.
my intention
Mm-hmm.
was really to create a space and an experience for people to come and kind of look at that. And also, because a lot of us also have a lot of past pain, whether it's from family or from relationships in the past, whatever it is. And how do we clean that up? Because to my belief is that we're, that's what's holding us back, and we don't even realize it. We we shove this stuff down, we push it down because we're just trying to go forward and move forward and create more and be proactive and progress and all of this stuff. And we don't look at the things that are holding us back. And so I want to create environments for people to drop into, to look at some of this harder stuff, but then of course, clean it up. It's like an mental emotional cleanup really is my intention.
Talk to me about the retreat itself. So kind of give us some details. Like, what would it look like? I sign up for a retreat because when I visualize retreat, right? When I hear that or I see somebody that does that for a living, let me tell you what I'm thinking in my head, and then you can correct me with what it really is. Because I hear it, I'm like, oh, I do retreats. So this is my thought. I'm like, okay, so I take a week off work, I go in the mountains and I sit around the campfire and hold hands and like tell people about my problems. And then I come home and I feel better. And then I come home and feel better. Like that's what I think the retreats are. Why don't you tell me what it really is?
Well, I mean, that's, so the great thing about retreating is there are a lot of different ways you can do it. So
Okay.
I spell out 9 different elements of retreat because I think, people confuse retreats with like a friend's weekend where you're drinking all weekend and like it was a retreat sort of, but like
you don't get to drink? Oh, that's a bummer.
well, you can. No, I mean you can.
That's
It depends. My belief is that a retreat has a higher spiritual intent, a
Okay.
deeper intention, really. And so you have to choose. Do you want to go by yourself? You want to go it alone, or do you want to join a group? So I think there are different choices to make along the way, but really the intention of a retreat is so that the frequency that we're living with, this crazy frequency, drops down so that our energy can open up and expand. So we come home with greater expansion of energy and like more predictable fluid frequency, if that makes sense. So every retreat looks so different. Mine, the ones that I host, we have a spot for what I call the heart curriculum. So we do that curriculum during the day. There are some retreats that are just yoga, which is fantastic. And some people, like you said, can go into the woods by themselves and do a retreat that way. But the 9 elements that I include in my book really spell out what needs to be included in a retreat for it to really be a retreat and not just like a party weekend.
Party.
Right, or a vacation, all of which are wonderful too. But I believe retreating has a really different intention.
So retreats by yourself, is that you coaching me how to go do it by myself, or you're coming along for the journey and helping? What does that look like?
Well, so there's a couple of ways. Right now, I'm actually about to launch a new product called the Self Retreat Kit. So with that, you take it with you, and basically it has yoga classes, it has a manual for you to print off. So you go by yourself. It has a schedule for you to follow. So if you want that kind of guidance, like absolutely, that's possible. Or you truly can just go by yourself and pick some books that are some that would help you further develop, whether that's a spiritual book, a self-help book, a business book, whatever, or even just a fiction book. Mental and emotional development is a big part of retreating. So I always ask my clients to bring books or podcasts or different things that will kind of stretch them in different ways, because I believe growth is a big piece of retreating. So again, you can do this by yourself. I mean, you can go to the woods, you can bring some books, you can meditate while you're there, you can, all of the things you can do by yourself. It just depends on what you want. Some people are less inclined to do that sort of thing, or there are certain pitfalls that might happen if you go by yourself, like frittering your time away on the internet, let's say, because it's just a habit pattern we have at home, and you get bored and you get there and suddenly it's like, well, this is stupid. And so you start, but again, you want to strip those things away. So if that's something you're inclined to do, then I'd say joining a group might be something worth considering. Yeah, so it's different for everybody, and you really have to research. If you're going to join a group, I'd say the number one factor to consider is who's the guide, because you really want to understand what their environment is that they're creating, because you don't want to walk into a party situation if you really wanted to have like a self-exploration week, or you don't want to walk into a self-exploration week if you really wanted to have more of a social, atmosphere. So it's worth really digging deep into the leader if you're joining a group. Whereas if you're doing it by yourself, you don't have to do those things, but you want to make sure that you kind of strip away some of the patterns that you have at home, so that you can get to the deeper layers of the mental emotional wellness.
The groups that you do, like what size do you, if I looked at the groups, do I have like groups to choose from? Do I have, okay, so here I want to choose my groups. I want to choose my activity. What does that look like?
So typically each retreat has a different focus, and my groups vary anywhere from like on the low end like 15 to on the
Oh,
high end like 45 at this
okay.
point. They're growing and they're getting a little bit bigger, so that
Wow.
shifts. But
Wow.
yeah, so it kind of depends. And typically I have a schedule that I run pretty tightly. I hold really firmly to people having their own time during the day, because some people are really physically inclined and they want to like go surfing on their off time or go hiking or do stand-up paddleboarding or something like that. Some people just need to rest. Some people
Mm,
come because
mm,
they're so exhausted and they just need a nap. So I hold tightly to having your own space. But in the morning we work hard. We have that heart curriculum piece.
mm.
I'm a yoga teacher for 20 years or longer too. So we always have yoga and breath work and meditation, because this is, flushing ourselves with these really good habits that we do once in a while at home, is really important on retreat to kind of break some of those habit patterns that we have so ingrained while we are at home. So we do lots of yoga, meditation, breath work, and then we do the curriculum piece. And then we have kind of some downtime in the afternoon. And then we gather again for ceremony and ritual. I'm a big believer in the power of ceremony and ritual for folks. I think it's something that's missing in our lives right now. So we do that every night.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
This is kind of the
Is this bring your spouse or you come by yourself?
Either. I have both. I have
Okay.
couples retreat is actually the number one that I get requested for. So that's in the works right now. But
Okay.
I have both. I have people come with siblings. I have people come with partners. I have people come with friends. And I also have
Okay.
people completely by themselves. It just depends on what you're looking for and what you want. My personal belief is like both my husband and I will take solo retreats each year, each of us, because we feel like that's important and different from like doing a retreat together. You know,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Is it always go to another country? Is it always go to like a resort type of thing, or what are the typical locations?
For mine, the land always has to have some kind of energetic resonance or
Mm.
so for instance, in the place that I go to in Costa Rica, it's in the blue zones, which the blue zones are the 6 places in the world that have been identified as people living well over 100 years old. So
Oh,
scientists flock to these places to try and figure out like what's the secret to longevity.
I
So
didn't know that.
yeah, it's a pretty Dan Buettner is the gentleman who's done this research. And so the Guanacaste Peninsula in Costa Rica is one of these spots. And so I host a retreat there because of that. I
Mm,
host a retreat in Crestone because it's an energetic vortex. There are 38 spiritual sites from all different religions
mm,
down in the space of Crestone. So I host a retreat there. I like to go to places that have hot springs. Like there's always something in the land for me,
mm,
because I
mm,
think that
mm.
can't help but add to your experience. Because, one of the things that happens on retreat is your energy shifts. Again, we're coming with this like really buzzy kind of overdriven energy, and it shifts, it kind of settles.
Mhm,
And so when
mhm.
you're experiencing nature and the land around you, that's really important. And that's really influential in shifting your patterns and your ways of being for when you go back home. So
Do you
I
make people put their phones away? Do you lock their smartphones up? Do you like, hey, look, here's a bucket. Everybody's gonna put their phone in here. Or how do you do that?
Well, I strongly encourage, I don't, force, because I do have lots of folks who come and they're like, I have to check my work once a day. I have to check in, and this is the time that I do that. But people set parameters for themselves. And we go through a whole process to figure out what your parameters are so that everyone sets their own, again, if parents are coming and they have really young kids, they might be nervous about, not talking to them at all the whole week. But I encourage shutting everything off, shutting everything down. That's my
Yeah,
personal practice. But I
yeah.
also know that in the world we live in today, people have different levels of comfort with that. So, it runs the gamut, but I strongly encourage dialing it down.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I totally agree. Like, unless somebody's dying, don't interrupt me, right? Like it's got to
totally.
be like super critical.
Yes.
Okay. How about this? Can I write? Is this a business expense? Can I write if I'm the CEO for a business? Is this like an expense my accountant will be fine with? How does that work?
I think so. I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because I have a lot of clients from Google, and Google pays for their
Okay.
employees to do self
Okay.
expansion or any kind of
Okay.
growth
Okay.
educational programming. So this
Mm,
counts. I mean, I think that's a big part of the reason why I have so many Googlers, is because of that reason alone. So
mm,
definitely, I mean, I think it's you can count it towards your education or growth, or mental health and wellness for sure.
mm, mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm. So
Yeah.
I get to go on a retreat, find get emotionally and mentally healthier, enjoy myself, and Riderflex pays for it. I got to talk to my partner, Scott, my co-founder. We need to sign up for this.
Well, and I
Are you,
think too, like, I know that particularly for masculinity and men, like hearing like, oh, I'm going to get like emotionally fit. That's not always the biggest draw, but I really, like, there's a level of creative power that comes out of pulling away. And I talk a lot about this research in my book. There was a writer named Graham Wallace who actually came up with the trajectory for the creative process. And what he found is that there are 4 different steps that we have to go through to have a creative output. There's preparation is the first step, then
Okay.
incubation, then verification, and then illumination. And my hypothesis is that so incubation is where you kind of relax and just hold something, like hold an idea, and just you're not focused on it. And my belief is that, we don't have enough space in our life for incubation, and retreats allow for incubation. And so
Mm,
you go through this process and you come home, you're just busting with creative ideas and with
yep.
power. So it's not just like so emotionally happy, it's like not only that, like you feel more vital and alive. So it's not just the mental emotional piece is part of it, absolutely, but then you come home and you're completely inspired and you have more
Mm.
energy, which matters. So
I can relate to so many things here. Now, I have not been on like a professional organized retreat, but I do, for the people that listen to this podcast, they probably know I do a lot of solo camping in the mountains where I go by myself. I'll take my Jeep up and I go by myself. And I will just confirm several things you said. Number one, you come back with all these creative thoughts because you were able to turn your smartphone off, not check email, and just let your mind think without being bombarded with social media and calls and emails. So
yes.
with the smartphones today, it is amazing what you can come up with creatively if you'll just turn your phone off for a couple of days. It's incredible. So I totally
Yeah.
agree that you come back with a lot of ideas. I always come back. I think my team, they're like, oh shit, okay, he's coming back from the mountains. There's going to be like 5 new ideas we're going to have to implement.
Right.
uh,
Right.
you know, so I
That's
totally, it's definitely, I can confirm it works. The other thing I would mention is, this just recently happened to me. Coincidentally, I went to the mountains. I was trying to go up during the week. I wanted to test going up on like a Tuesday, Wednesday.
Mhm.
I found that very difficult to relax during the week. I found that super hard to do because my mind was racing around what was going on at work, and I'm trying to be there during the week, and like, oh, this is hard. I'm super stressed. And
Yeah.
so on the second day, I made the mistake of picking up my satellite phone and calling my business partner to check in, and I shouldn't have done that because then my mind was just, it was over. There was no more creativity. Now I'm stressed about work, and so I just packed my shit up and came home.
Yeah.
And so the lesson there I would just say for people is, try to stay away from your phone and checking in as much as possible, or else it's not going to work anyway.
Totally. Well, and I agree with you. And that's one of the elements of retreat is to disconnect from work and home life. And again,
Yeah.
I work with adults, so I can't strong arm anyone to do anything. But I really, really, I like you said, it makes a huge difference to just shut it down. I always suggest
Yes.
sending an email to your work and to your family being like, hey, I love you, or, work, like, thanks so much for understanding. I'll see you in a week,
Yep.
like shut it down. So there's a really strong boundary. There's no need to be sharing pictures or sharing breakthroughs, none of that. Like, it's just, bring your journal. That's what that's for. There's no need to be checking back. And I think you're exactly right that if you even just like once or twice, then it becomes, because it takes a few days. I don't know if you've experienced this, or at least
Right.
to unwind from that nervous, that frenetic energy that we all come in carrying. So it's important to have that day of like kind of the panic. And then the next day or the next 2 days, it starts to like settle down a little bit, but it takes a day or at least a day, maybe even a couple days to break away from that. So if you're
Totally
checking
agree.
in the whole way through, then you're definitely missing some opportunities for sure.
Couldn't agree more. I also love what it does for my relationship with my wife. Like anytime, this is going to sound really like
No.
cheesy masculine, like caveman crap or whatever. Like if I go on a solo trip to the mountains, like way back in the woods, like nobody around, like, kind of a little risky maybe or whatever,
Yeah.
And I'm gone for like 3 days. Man, when I come back home, I feel like I've conquered like something huge, and my wife is there, and she's ready to see me, and I'm ready to see her, and it's super, good.
Yeah.
I
Hot,
don't
right?
know.
Hot.
I don't know if anybody else experiences that, but I do, because I feel like I've conquered something, and now I'm going to see my bride, and it's awesome. Is that weird? Is that cheesy? I don't know.
No, that's exactly what happens. I mean, that's amazing. That's like the whole idea, right? Is like sometimes we do need a little bit of space, right? So that we can
Yeah.
remember what we have. And when we focus on ourselves, we come home with more power to share with everyone. So it's not exactly the outcome. It's not cheesy at all. And to have a healthier, stronger relationship, I mean, that's one of the best outcomes we can hope for. You know, we're so
Yeah, true.
obsessed with like professional outcomes, but the truth is, if we have an amazing partnership, if we have like a healthy physical body, if we have slept really well and eaten nourishing food, like we can conquer anything. Like work is like easy, you know,
Mhm.
it's those more nuanced things like relationships that benefit from retreating.
Are your clients more their emotional state, are they in bad shape more because of relationships and the loss of love, or more because of material things and stress around work, and they're depressed because they don't live in the right neighborhood? So is it more around material things and work, or more around relationships and love? What do you see most of?
You know, that's a great question that I have never had before, but it really runs the gamut. I think everybody's dealing with such different things. You know, in the
Mm,
beginning, I had more of a type, I would say. Like I had a lot of high achieving CEOs and like really successful folks who just needed to plop into a program so that I could run it for them and like dial it down. But I have moms and dads coming. I have people like you said, people dealing with breakups or loss. I've had a lot of people who have lost parents who
mm,
have
mm.
come to kind of process and work through some of that. Or so it just depends. I mean, we all go
Mm.
through all of these stages. That's the thing. We all experience loss. We all experience like stress. We all experience, feeling
Yes.
lost in our lives sometimes. And I think that's what's so great about the practice of retreat is it's the way to reset. It's the way to like take charge again and be like, maybe last year your intention was like, you were trying to heal from something. Maybe this year it's like you're trying to create something new. So
I see.
retreat, yeah, I mean, it offers something for you no matter what state you come in. I used to use retreating as like a tool for healing. I still use it as a tool for healing, but now I use it also as like a propellant for creativity. So like I am about, whenever I'm about to start a new project, I know I need to pull away so that I can kind of refocus and not even focus. So I can just relax and read and I call it to drift, just allow myself to drift a little
Mhm,
bit. Like
mhm.
um what's the word I'm thinking of? Oh, I can't remember. But anyway, the point is like I just think it's so nice to step away because then you come back and no matter what state you're in, there's value for you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can you, is cannabis involved? Can you drop some mushrooms? What can you do? What's allowed?
So that one's coming actually. I have a
Okay.
retreat for this coming. It'll probably be mushrooms. I'm working with a functional
Okay.
medicine nurse
Great.
actually. So we're going to host one in New Mexico.
Hmm.
This one I can't have publicly on my website. So it's got
Uh,
kind of a tell your friends kind of a thing. It's met with like some people are like, oh, that's so awesome. And some people are like, oh, this is terrible. Like what are you? So, but I'm open-minded and I love this. I'm really fascinated by this kind of stuff. And I'm about transformation at all costs, for in any way. So I love experimenting with different things. So yeah,
no.
so I
Is
think
it-
that, a lot of my retreats, that's not a part of it. If you want it to be and
Okay.
you do your own retreat, it certainly can be. I mean, that's its
I see.
own experience for sure. But I am planning to have one that's with that intention the whole way through. Yeah.
I think that's great. I
Yeah.
think it's great. I think it's great that cannabis can be involved now at our age, publicly. And meanwhile, when we were in college, we had to like sneak around, make
I know.
sure nobody.
I know. It's true. It's
uh,
great.
how about this? When you're sitting around in the circle, you're talking in groups or whatever, how do you work on managing that dominating personality? Fred, who thinks he needs to talk the whole time and he's trying to dominate everybody or what? How do you talk to me about managing that?
That's a good question because there is always a Fred.
Yes, always is. Yeah. Matter of
Yeah,
fact, when you first get your group, you're probably like, okay, let me figure out who Fred is. Okay, there he is
yeah.
right there.
Totally. And
Uh,
every time without fail, that always happens, even when I
yes.
think it might not. But, I think, again, years having been a teacher, it's really helpful because I've worked with all kinds of kids, and it's trained me
Mhm.
to be
Mhm.
flexible and also like a ninja in a way that like I can kind of move and shape and shift. And, I had one person who came my very first retreat ever who was making racial comments and
Ooh,
not directly in the group, but kind of backhandedly. And I
ooh,
had,
ooh,
an Iranian woman, I had a Filipino woman who were telling me that this was happening.
ooh.
So, at that point, I didn't have the confidence, nor did I have the liability form signed to be like, kick her off. Now I do that. Now I have people sign forms and now I
Good.
have confidence so that I would ask that person to leave. But I addressed the group directly and I just said, hey, like this is not, this is not a place for this. If this happens again, you will be asked to leave. So that it always happens,
It
I'm
always
grateful
happens, right? Huh.
background as a teacher. I think that helps. But adults are interesting.
I mean, people are interesting, right? I mean, so I'm sure, like, if like you see people like starting to argue about politics or some social issue or whatever, like you hear us a little side conversation, you were watching them on the side, and they're bickering about, I don't know, whatever, and you're like, I'm sure you're monitoring and managing and trying to maneuver through that all the time.
For sure, for sure. And at a certain point too, like as a facilitator, I have to drop it too, because I can completely lose myself in like being too focused on these two people who are having an issue. And like I've got a whole group to manage. So like
Mm,
that's an issue. And if they need to step outside and I'll ask them to go handle themselves, like we're all adults here, like I'm not gonna
yep.
hate people and I have a bigger goal and mission to serve a whole group, not to serve just two people who are distracting the whole process. So I stay pretty wedded to like my intention, which is to serve the entire group. And if people are
Mm.
distracting that or they're being assholes, then like I will gladly ask them to leave.
Speaking of serving the whole group, when you said 45 earlier, my first thought was 45 people. That's pretty challenging for you as the facilitator to make sure you're hitting each person. Because I'm just guessing you're organized enough to where you're probably like you probably got this sheet of paper and you're like, okay, Fred, I talked to Fred, I talked to Mary, I talked to John, okay, Bobby, okay, Sally. Oh, okay, yep, I haven't hit it. I got to make sure I talk to him. Like, I mean, you're gonna have to make sure you're talking to everybody so they feel like, because if not, they're like, "Oh, she didn't even talk to me." I mean, yeah, she's talking to Mary. I mean, you get all that. I'm sure that happens.
Right. I mean, for sure. And one of the great things about the group process is like as groups are getting bigger, I have people pair up. And so a lot of processing happens between the pairs, which ends up
Mm,
being a really wonderful thing to have this accountability buddy because many people who come and end up being accountability buddies stay in touch afterwards. And that's one of the great secrets of making your retreat carry on longer than just that experience is you check in and you're like, hey, how are you doing on that goal? Or like, how are things going with your relationship or whatever it was that you shared intimately? Because not everybody wants to raise their hand in a group. I mean, some
right,
people do it with touch, right?
right,
But some
right,
people
right.
stay silent the whole time. So having that accountability buddy makes sure that everybody's heard. And that's really important when you're kind of processing these deeper things.
Mm. How I'm sure
Yeah.
this happens to you too. Does this happen like Mary taps you on the shoulder, like, "Hey, can we like talk on the side after? I'm sure you get that
Yeah,
constantly.
for sure, for sure. I offer what I call soul sessions. They're one-on-one
Ah,
sessions, and they're during a very distinct window of time for the
I
same
see.
reason that, again, my first retreat, I was always like, yes, 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 yes. And so I was just hemorrhaging,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I was completely depleted, which serves nobody. So I
yeah.
have to be pretty tight about like one-on-ones because I understand that some people want to process deeper and like I love that. But I also know that like I can't do it every single moment, the whole, week long
You
or
can't,
whatever.
you can't. Yeah.
Right.
You ever
Yeah.
you ever get like a 2 a.m., like a 3 a.m. knock on your door at the hotel at the you're like, "Ah," and they're like, "I just need to talk," and you're like, "Okay." Yeah.
Yes. But now thankfully I have assistants now. Again, I've grown a lot.
Ah,
I have help so that people
all
can help
right.
with kind of mitigating some of that, which is really great.
Do you have assistants that stand next to you and like as a client's coming towards you, they're like, "Mary, it's Mary, it's Mary," and they're like calling you the name?
um,
Yeah.
more or less.
I mean, it would be tough. Okay, let me ask you a couple more questions here. If you were to be challenged, if somebody were to say, Hey, Brie, look, there's, because I get this too as a recruiter, right? There's like 20,000 recruiters. And when we're trying to sell recruiting, everybody's like, oh, why is Riderflex different? And we got to sell our value, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
For you, same thing. Like, how would you answer that? Like, okay, well, there's a bunch of retreat people. Like, why is Bries special? Like, what's the differentiation and value for you compared to everybody else? How would you describe it?
Yeah, that's a great question. What's different about my retreats is that I offer a heart curriculum. So every one of my retreats, you have a full like manual really, and it's the latest researched, like I deep dive into whatever the topic is and have all kinds of research and all kinds of activities for people at my retreats. And that's what's different because like I said, most of my competitors are yoga retreats or
Mhm,
different things like that. But having this
mhm,
heart curriculum is what makes it so unique. So not only do you have a physical experience, you have kind of an internal, emotional, and energetic experience too. And you can take
okay,
that with you. You leave and you refer back to that, like how did I do on that goal? Or like, have I processed that relationship with my father? Or did I reach
mm,
out to my mother like I said I was going to? Or have I reconnected with my brother? Whatever it is, you have
mhm,
that with you. So you're not just like, you don't go home feeling like, gosh, I feel really good. You go home with a full transformation and you go home with like
mm, mm.
actionables too. That's really
Ah,
important. Yes, because I
ah,
want people to walk away with something. So the heart curriculum is what makes my retreat so unique. And each retreat, like I said, has a really different focus. One retreat, it's called Purify. So that one's actually a cleanse. So it's a 3-day juice fast. And we work on moving past fear and releasing stuck emotion or releasing trauma, both big and small. So that's Purify. Then I have
mm,
one called Ignite. And this is looking at the relationship between masculine and feminine energy and how
mm,
it plays out in our intimate relationships. So lots of
mm,
times what I've found is a lot of my clients are really women who are in masculine situations. So what happens is they kind of masculinize themselves. And what happens then is if they're with a masculine partner in a relationship, then they lose polarity. They start to,
mm.
they start to struggle because they're too similar. It's like we've got two masculine people operate. It doesn't matter the gender. It can be like both male, both female, doesn't matter. You're always
Okay.
going to have masculine energy and a feminine energy. And to have that chemistry, you got to have both. So that's a retreat. I do all different kinds. I have one for mothers and daughters. I have one right or before the holidays called Honor, because the holidays can be really triggering for people, like there's all this like joy, and that's a lot of that's true. And there's also a lot of sadness and heartache. And like, if
That's
you lost someone, I mean, that's really difficult and painful. If you didn't have that upbringing that like some people did, that holidays can be difficult. So I do one right before the holidays. So again, every retreat has a really different focus so that
okay.
people can really dive into whatever they need at the time. Yeah.
I don't think I could do the Purify because I need to eat and drink whatever I want.
Fair, fair. That's fair.
uh, what's the business model? If you don't, I don't know how much you want to share, but is it
Yeah.
I pay per retreat. I pay monthly, yearly. Talk to me about the model.
It's per retreat. At this point, it's per retreat. And, I've thought a lot about how, because I have a lot of repeat clients who, as every
Okay.
time I roll out a new retreat, I'll have a lot of people who have come to a bunch of other retreats come to this retreat. So I've thought about like how to do something for the people who continue to come.
Okay.
But it's pay per retreat because they are so different. And I try to offer a variety. Like I'll have a week-long retreat, but I also have just a day retreat because I know that not everybody can escape for a week. So I have different like entry points for people. I have some weekend retreats that works really well for some people. I have long weekend retreats, and then I have the full week. And eventually as my kids get older, I'll add bigger, longer. But right now,
Okay.
that's manageable.
Pay 100% up front.
No, usually there's a deposit, a significant deposit that you pay at the beginning, and then you pay the rest like 2 months before or something like that. And
Oh,
I
2 months. I see. I see. But you need to be paid in full before you get on the airplane to go somewhere. Okay.
yes, yeah,
Now that's the other question I have, and then I'll hit you with a couple more questions. I know we're almost out of time. When
yeah,
I hear the word retreat, and I think a lot of people, think this way.
yeah,
I always relate that to rich people that have the money to pay for this stuff,
yep,
and the average middle class, blue collar plumber, he doesn't have the money to pay for these retreats. So I always think of it as a rich person activity.
yeah.
I guess two-part question. Why do I think that way? And correct me on it, I guess, and tell me what it help me understand why it's not just for rich people.
Yeah. So I think why you feel that way is because that's what we see in the media right now. The visions of retreat are at these like elaborate, beautiful places, and it's always white people, right? It's always the rich white people doing these experiences who have the time, resources, etc. The truth is, though, retreating was started by like religiously devout people, right? I mean, I don't know which religion has claim on like who started the first retreats, but like you think back to like even the transcendentalists, like who would just leave and go in the woods, as you expressed too. So one of my missions is to put retreating on the map for all folks, because yes, it's nice to join a program and join some kind of retreat like that. It's also just as effective, right? To go into the woods, or to go to your sister's cabin, or to go to your friend's place in the city and spend 2 nights completely by yourself with your books, your phone shut off, and some nice music. I mean, that's effective as well. So retreating can be for anyone. And that's really my intention, is to share the message that it's for everyone. And, I also, on my programs, especially my week-long one, I have a scholarship. So every year I have folks apply, and we pick. Last year we had 2 years ago because of COVID, but we had 2 women come on that one. The year before it was just 1. And it's based on need, because I feel really strongly about that too. I feel like it's not fair that like the people who can afford it get these experiences, but probably the people who need it the most, who are overworked and stressed out and can't access it. So that scholarship's really important to me. It's something that I plan to do every year going forward. But again, like it doesn't have to be at this luxurious resort, even though that's lovely. Like you really can rent a hotel or a motel room, or stay in your friend's cabin, and that's just fine. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Two last questions.
Yeah.
If you've experienced a lot at this point, and you've met a lot of people, you've been through quite a journey yourself just in life. If you could call the young lady coming out of CU and tell her anything today, what would you tell her based on what you've learned?
Oh, that's a great question. To just have more trust, and I think that's something I even struggle with a bit now, is to just relax a little bit. And I'm a hard worker. I was raised on the value of hard work. And so I push and I push and I push and I grind. And that's one of my strengths. That's why I've accomplished so much. But if I could just receive a little bit more, trust a little bit more, relax a little bit more, I think I'd have a more graceful, a more graceful time with it, for sure. Yeah.
Does the trust come into play because there's just so many people out there that are trying to take advantage, or where does that come from?
It's not as much trusting people. It's like trusting that, no matter what comes, like I'll handle it, no matter what comes, no matter like one of the things that hosting retreats has taught me is like, when I first started putting my retreats out there, I was like, oh my gosh, like, are people going to sign up? Am I going to, is it going to even work? Like what, and I had a lot of nervousness around that. And what I learned every single retreat is like the people who are meant to be there are there, and the experience unfolds as it should. And like, that's what I mean by trust, not necessarily people. It's more just like, trust that the universe is working in my favor, and whatever, even if something really difficult and painful happens, like I can handle it, and I can get the lesson from it, for sure. Yeah.
Good stuff. Last question. If you could put your core purpose in life into a sentence today, let's separate your 3 children and husband for a minute. Let's make it a professional core purpose.
Yeah.
If you could put that core purpose into a sentence now at this stage in your life, what would that sound like?
I think it's to help people rediscover their power, to remember that they have everything they need, to help people rediscover their power and their wellness that's already there.
Okay, very good. It sounds like you're doing that. You're doing that right now, right? For the listeners, what's the best thing for them to do? BrieDoyle.com. Is that the best way to?
I think so. Yeah. Subscribe to BrieDoyle.com. You can get my book from there. And also I'm active on Instagram. That's my most active social channel. So it's at Wellbeing by Brie.
At Wellbeing by Brie.
Yeah.
On Instagram. And the book, can I pre-order it on Amazon as well?
Yep, you can pre-order Amazon, Barnes and Noble, a lot of independent stores as well. But yeah.
Okay, and the book, just so everybody knows, you should leave now, going on a retreat to find your way back to yourself. What's the launch date? July what?
July 13th. July 13th.
July 13th. Okay, very good. Do I get like a signed copy or anything? What do I get out of this deal?
For sure. Absolutely.
In
Absolutely.
fact, in fact, I forgot to tell you, since you were on the podcast, like I get like free retreats for life now. I forgot to, did you get that note from Scott?
Awesome. Well, I'll see you in a couple weeks then.
Brie, thanks for being on the Riderflex podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so grateful to talk to you. You asked great questions. So thank you.